Broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change?
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet.
Announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion. And welcome everyone to TNZ Talk. I am the Z, Richard Zombek in TNZ, and I am here with my co-host, Tony Tripiano. And today is, I guess we're talking about Dump Trump. I mean, that seems to be the whole GOP move here, eh?
Yes, it is, A. Speaking of A, I'm sure you saw that the number one Google search after Trump won Super Tuesday was how to move to Canada, eh?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. There are a bunch of celebrities moving to Canada. There are, and like you said, the number one search on Google was how do I move? It went up 1,000% of how do I move to Canada or moving to Canada. And let's not forget, there's a tiny island remote town in Canada that has offered Americans a place to live should Trump become president, which is looking, well, if you look at like real life data, is looking more and more likely that he's going to be the nominee. But if you talk to Republicans, it's never going to happen. And that, and really they're kind of pulling out all the stops here, aren't they, Tony?
Well, see, let me share with you that there's been so much going on. You had sent me an email yesterday, said, tomorrow, let's talk about the GOP imploding. And I thought that was a great way to characterize it. Interestingly, I read an article early this morning in New York Magazine that Roger Ailes has made it clear to the staff at Fox News that Marco Rubio is now off limits. There's no way he can win. They've lost confidence in him. They don't want him on the air. Now, we'll see if that manifests specifically, but I find that interesting. Trump, of course, is in a feud with Fox News, and I don't even know if he appears on there anymore. I saw him on, well, actually, I heard him on MSNBC this morning, an interesting interview. But the GOP's in real trouble. Now, Mitt Romney is going to make a major speech today about Donald Trump. Let me read to you what the DNC communications director, Louis Miranda, sent out this morning. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the man who called for self-deportation said that African Americans voted for President Obama because of free stuff and called 47% of American freeloaders is going to give GOP frontrunner Donald Trump a lesson in sensitivity and compassion? Right. If you think Mitt Romney's comments are going to have any effect on Trump's candidacy or his behavior, we've got a car elevator to sell you.
Yeah, I don't even know why they're bringing him into the mix. I mean, it's not like he's an elder statesman, like Reagan or Eisenhower, for that matter. I mean, who likes Romney? I mean, who?
But doesn't that tell you what kind of trouble the GOP is in?
Well, yeah, but I mean, isn't there someone else they could bring out that has the respect of Republican voters? Oh no, that's right. They've got a 3% rating. I mean, this is where we at. And here's the thing. Here's the really scary thing. And I kind of want to go into a little bit of a dive onto this. Is that they're considering something very similar to what the Democratic Party did in 1968. So let's take a trip down memory lane. In 1968, the anti-war candidates, LBJ was the incumbent. He decided not to run for another term. The Democrats wanted an anti-war candidate. They had Gene McCarthy and Robert Kennedy running. And at the time, McCarthy had won 6 primaries. Robert Kennedy had won 4. And that's right about the time that he got shot in California, right? So you have a front runner, anti-war candidate, having won 6 primaries. And in Chicago, what do the Democrats do? They do an end run around the primary voters and go for delegates and nominate Hubert Humphrey as the Democratic nominee. And the crowd went, I mean, there was a riot in Chicago. There was a
literally.
And all he did was quietly in the background collect delegates. And they pretty much installed him as the nominee. And then, if I'm not mistaken, who actually won that election?
Well, we don't have a president by that name, so I'm guessing the Democrat lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeesh.
Exactly.
Well, here's the game that's being played now, as I know you're aware, but for those in the audience that aren't Richard Zombeck, Republicans are now playing delegate math. Donald Trump at this point has 46% of the delegates.
Hey,
he needs 51%.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
Just to answer that question, we got Richard Nixon.
Oh yes, absolutely. I am not a crook. What a guy! Did you ever see Nixon Frost? By the way, the movie
Nixon what? I
Frost.
did not.
Oh,
I
great movie! Oh, you've got to watch that movie. Great movie. Just the way that is it David Frost? Is that his name?
I think so. Yeah. Nixon.
Yeah.
Nixon was a troubled little nugget.
Well, the way that he got
no
manipulated in that interview. Yeah, the way he was manipulated in that interview was brilliant. Anyway, Donald Trump currently has 46% of the delegates. He needs 51 to lock up the nomination. And so one of the strategies, I emphasize one of the strategies, is to make sure he does not get to 51%. Now, I don't know how you accomplish that, especially with Michigan coming up. Trump is leading in this state by 20 points. I think Kasich will win Ohio. I really do. But, Donald Trump is beating Marco Rubio in Florida at this point, according to the polls. I don't know. If that's their strategy, it's like everything else the Republicans are doing right now. It's a failed strategy.
Well, and if they're actually planning to do some kind of brokered deal at the convention, Trump supporters are not the ones to be screwing with right now. I mean, these are highly and easily inflamed voters and a constituency and a base that is, I would say, probably not the sharpest tools in the shed. I know a lot of people. I'll tell you one thing. I mean, I've had conversations with a couple people who are they're pretty smart guys. Pay attention. They were Trump supporters for the better part of his candidacy, and now are kind of looking at me going, "Ooh, boy!" Like they're not quite willing to admit that they've made a mistake, but they're not too happy with their choices right now. So, but he still has a strong voting population, gun-toting, ignorant Americans. That I think if the Chicago 1968 in Chicago was bad, I don't. This is gonna. I shudder.
Let's
to
put
think
it this
about
way: it'll give new definition to Cleveland rocks.
Well,
Fair enough.
That's certainly true.
Listen. Let me go back to this Marco Rubio story for a minute. because there's some really good stuff in this story in New York Magazine that I want to share with you. Roger Ailes, obviously, is a very powerful man. We can agree on that, correct? And he has made it very clear where he stands. But let me just read a little bit of this from this article. It says, but this alliance to Rubio now seems to be over. According to 3 Fox sources, Fox chief Roger Ailes has told people he's lost confidence in Rubio's ability to win. We're finished with Rubio, Ailes recently told a Fox host. We can't do the Rubio thing anymore. Goes on to say that already there are on-air signs that Fox's attitudes towards Rubio has cooled. This morning, which would have been yesterday morning, anchor Martha McCallum grilled Rubio about his poor Super Tuesday performance. And she said, is that a viable excuse at this point? When he tried spinning his second place finish in Virginia. Fox's corporate support of Rubio has also been a growing source of tension with the network's more conservative talent. Sean Hannity was furious that the Times article reported how he went along with Rubio's immigration proposal, that would be the Gang of Eight. During an interview with Trump on Monday, Hannity barely defended Fox while Trump trashed Rubio backers like Hayes. He shouldn't be on air, Trump said. The best Hannity could muster was to change the subject. Have you ever watched MSNBC, he said? They suck. Ailes is now back to searching for a candidate the channel can rally behind. He's thinking, what do we do about this whole damn thing? One of the news executive friends said. A Fox spokesman, Irina Briganti, did not return a call for comment. Of course she didn't.
Well, and yesterday or the day before, Hannity unloaded on Rubio and called him a hired gun and accused him of taking, money for going after Trump, and then says, Donald Trump, this is exactly what Donald Trump showed a side of himself last night. I'm speaking objectively here. I'm not taking sides in this, but Donald Trump showed a side of him that was very different last night. I mean, you could use the word presidential in the way, and this is Hannity, right? Is saying, I'm not taking any sides here. I'm strictly an objective reporter. And so, this is, they're completely fracturing. They're imploding and fracturing.
So where do we go with this? We get to a point, there's, of course, a debate tonight in Detroit, which we will be very, very interested in watching. I think this is a good time to mention Ben Carson has made it clear that he's stepping out of the race.
Well, he's missing yet another debate. He's missed every single debate so far. It's not like Ben Carson's not going to be in the debate. Well, that's new. This is so what? Ben Carson was a non-issue anyway. He was there. He was good for comic relief. Well, I just wish that someone would make fun of me and attack me so I could say.
Yay! We got it. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted today. I wanted just a little Ben Carson imitation, and I got it. He said he doesn't see a political path forward. You think?
Yeah, I don't think his candidacy was anything more than a vanity run anyway, and a possibility to maybe sell some more books. And there was even some speculation that it was a consultant pile, right, where they were bringing all this money in, they were paying consultants were making all this money, and really there was no. I find it hard to believe that there was any real serious move for him to actually think that he could become president. This is a guy that has a picture in his bathroom of him and Jesus in bathrobes. I don't know what they're getting ready to do, but
I love it. I love it when you get a little kerfuffled. because you really don't know where to go with it, which is just precious as hell. Yeah, I mean, what do you make of that picture? And that he actually posted it.
Well, he's got. I mean,
he wanted people to see it.
Yeah, he's proud of it. He's proud of it. I mean, every single one of these guys, I mean, with the exception of Trump, was told individually and personally by God that they should run for president. And when they drop out, apparently God didn't make a phone call that day. I mean, this is what I always heard, right? If you talk to God, you're religious. If he answers, you're insane, right?
I can live with that.
It just, listen, I want to play Ben Ginsburg on MSNBC, the Republican attorney, talking about this possible end run. And really, this was put in the press as this should never have been said out loud in public. So let me play that real quick.
What do you do about your beloved Republican Party and, more importantly, the subset Republican Party establishment?
Well, really good question. I think what you do is face the reality that you got to do a lot electorally in the next 2 weeks. March 15th is kind of cutoff day. Then if you care deeply about where the party goes, you get into the rules a little bit. And you learn that 73% of the delegates are chosen at state conventions or by state party executive committees with little or no input from the candidate who wins that state. Who the actual delegates are is a product of the state parties for the most part. So they're bound to vote for the presidential candidate on the first ballot. They are not bound to vote for the presidential candidate for rules issues, for credentials challenges, for the vice presidential nominee, or even who the permanent chair of the convention is. So if you were to devise a plan to stop a runaway nominee, you would have to do a lot of state-by-state organizing, win the delegates at the convention.
So if you were going to organize that kind of effort to, let's just be real, to deny Donald Trump the nomination, even though he won the most delegates and won the most primaries, you couldn't, it sounds like what you're saying is you couldn't do it in a top-down, centrally organized way. You'd have to organize 50 state parties.
50,
yeah. So can we do something more realistic here, which is, you said March 15th, the cutoff. That's what this is about now, right? This is a 2-week sprint to deny Trump delegates. This is no longer about trying to beat Trump. It's just simply to deny Trump a majority of the delegates before the convention, right? This is where we're at tonight.
Yes, I think that is realistically where you are tonight, given the delegates.
Do you think, as somebody who's been there, that realistically Donald Trump could be denied the nomination if he continues with this kind of momentum in the process?
So what we're talking about and what I'm describing is the equivalent of a triple bank shot. It is one of those things that has not happened in history, but neither in presidential recounts. So every once in a while, you get a random event that nobody sees coming. It could be this.
You'd be disenfranchising a sizable movement. There's a reason behind this Trump effort.
Yeah.
So who's going to go on record as doing this work, as launching this effort?
I'm not sure. I don't think you won't be able to do it anonymously from the shadows. You are going to have to be public at the state conventions if you're going to make it work, and they will be forces, I think, aligned with Cruz, Rubio, Kasich, and they'll go out and they'll have unity slates of delegates that will try and win at the conventions. But none of them want to trade places. I mean, Donald Trump is the guy in the driver's seat, and he can make all this work. I think you're absolutely right about disenfranchising a whole movement, but all Republican nominees have gone into a convention with the majority of delegates. So if somebody goes into the convention lacking a majority of delegates, that's a sign of weakness. And so kind of the rules that we were talking about at state conventions start to apply. If nobody goes in with the majority of delegates, that is a historically weak front runner. There are rules of the convention that do apply, and people will take advantage of those rules and use them to their advantage.
Okay, Tony, so a little long, but if if I'm understanding this correctly, if they're lucky enough that Trump doesn't get a majority of delegates, they'll appoint someone. Did you get the same sense of that?
That's strategy two. Yeah, that's strategy two. Now, as we talked about yesterday and was reported in all the major media today, the idea of a third party is still being considered, although not as seriously as it was a week ago, because they understand the uphill climb that would take. And they are talking about putting Mitt Romney in that role. Here, you want a laugher? This is going to actually make you laugh. If Mitt Romney doesn't want to do it, they were going to ask Rick Perry. Rick Perry said, that's ludicrous.
Yeah, I can't even see, oops. I don't even know how that's a better choice than Romney. I don't see Romney as a good choice, but really he's not even a candidate right now. He's not even running. And so,
that goes back to how we opened the show, Z. I mean, if that's what they have, if Romney and Rick Perry is what the Republicans have, they're really in trouble.
But they've already got an electorate that is completely distrustful of the Republican establishment. They obviously want Trump. I mean, Trump won in Massachusetts, for God's sakes. I have a theory about that, but Trump took Massachusetts.
Whoa. You can't say you've got a theory and not share the theory.
Okay, well, my theory is what choice did they actually have? I mean, people in Massachusetts are never gonna vote for Cruz. Rubio isn't really attractive to people in Massachusetts, particularly because of his stance on abortion, which is no abortions even in the case of incest and rape. So why not vote for Trump? I mean, he's winning. He's got no shot of winning. Hopefully, I mean, if the Democrats put Hillary Clinton in, I think to most people in Massachusetts, they see her as easily beating Trump, and would rather have Clinton in the White House than Trump. I'm giving Massachusetts voters a tremendous amount of credit. These are also people that voted for Scott Brown. But I think if you're a reasonable Republican, you can't go with Cruz. You just can't. You can't. I mean, Cruz is probably fundamentally more dangerous than Donald Trump.
Well, let's for a moment take two different paths. The first one is, will there be such a thing as Trump Democrats like there were Reagan Democrats? And the second part of this, going back to what you just said, trusting the voters of Massachusetts. Can we trust Democrats to come out and vote against Donald Trump? And maybe we can juxtapose those two together.
Well, and that's really one of my biggest fears, right? Are the Democrats going to step up and come out and vote in droves? Because, like, we've discussed many times on this show, they are typically don't come out and vote in large numbers. And I think, I don't know if even the fear of having Donald Trump as a president is gonna be enough for Democratic voters to come out and vote. I think if they don't like someone, they're not going to vote for them, even if that means having someone that they like worse. And I have adapted a healthy mistrust of the Democrats' ability to come out and vote, even in their own best interest.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. What else do we have when we spin the audio wheel this morning?
Well, I've got a couple things from Shep Smith. Ben Stein too is pretty. Let's play a couple clips from Shep Smith. I like Shep Smith. He's from Fox News. He was talking to I can't remember what his name is now. But let's play this. This is his guest on Shep's show.
I learned one thing, and that's eventually the split that Republicans were having were going to mean that essentially mom and dad were going to have the fight in front of the kids. But that's not exactly what's happening right now. What we've had is that, to some extent, the crazy uncle has shown up. He's led the fight. He's insulted everybody in the family. And that's why we see a party at war with each other right now and not proposing what I think a lot of us would like to see are real solutions to how we grow jobs, how we grow wages, how we get Washington back on track to work for the American people. Trump just hasn't offered those solutions.
Yeah, so that's a Republican theorizing about what's going on in the party, which is pretty. I mean, it's a pretty obvious assessment, but where does that leave them?
Nothing.
Yeah,
I mean that's the answer. The answer leaves them nothing. You know, Trump came out with a health care plan yesterday. I'll be the first to admit I didn't read the details. I know it was laughed at both on the Republican and Democratic side.
I mean, they basically have a Republican Party and Republican voters that have completely run to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is running away with the Republican Party. They've spent the last 8 years coming up with absolutely nothing. Promising and over-promising, and Ted Cruz and Rubio, quite frankly, are doing the same thing. I want to play a couple clips from that same interview, and these ones are relatively short, but I want to play Shep Smith's assessment of why this has happened. So here's the first clip.
What's happened is two parties have been created. This party that you talk about, the Constitutional Conservative Party, and then the party of Donald Trump and all of those who are wanting to go in a different direction, who believe, they say, that they've been lied to by the establishment for cycle after cycle. We're going to repeal and replace Obama. Every single person who knows one thing knew that you weren't going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Everybody knew it, even the people who were saying it, and yet you kept saying it and you kept not being able to do it, and now they don't trust you anymore. Do you blame them? Were they children and you the parent? Wouldn't the child go run away at 16?
I love that. Wouldn't the child go run away at 16? I mean, they've been over and over and over and over again repealing. We're going to repeal Obamacare. 60 votes later. They have nothing to show for it.
64 votes later.
Okay,
I've been
64.
keeping score. No, I've been keeping score.
And I think they're going to bring it up yet another time. I think there's probably another repeal Obamacare. I mean, what have they done just in the last 6 months? I mean, so how do they actually expect their voters to trust them, particularly if you're an establishment? And then you've got Ted Cruz, who is just, shuts down the government and then puts up a bill and then votes against it to prove that he's anti-amnesty. I mean, this is typical typical GOP. Typically GOP, and how they expect. I mean, the total mess that they're in, that they've created for themselves, in this kerfuffle, is
twice in one show. Yay!
Twice in one show. So hold on, because I want to play the last bit of Shep Smith, and this is towards the end of the show where he really kind of just lets into the guy.
How much regret is there going to be during this soul-searching process that throughout the term of Barack Obama, Republicans pretended they can do things that they knew they couldn't to keep their base organized and active? Lots of things. We could go through a list, but I'm not going to bother, because you know the whole list of things that Republicans said, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, while every single one of them knew they couldn't. But their constituencies did not know that they couldn't. They didn't know it because you told them otherwise.
Shep, I can only talk about what we did when I worked in the House of Representatives, and we voted on everything that we talked about doing. It was hard work. We had trouble getting there. Sometimes we couldn't get there to 218
votes. The vote was
votes.
worthless 61 times repealing Obamacare. Nobody ever, what, he's going to sign it?
But Shep, more than 20 of those times, President Obama signed changes into law. We have changed Obamacare. Have we been able to repeal it? No, because you need a House and a Senate and a president to repeal that bill. And if we have a Republican president who will do that, we'll be able to get it done. Well, I would say anybody but Donald Trump. Donald Trump not only wants to strengthen Obamacare, obviously he was an Obamacare supporter and an Obama supporter, but Donald Trump is somebody who wants to take us to a single-payer health care plan. That's even worse than Obamacare.
Anybody but Donald Trump's not on the ballot. A bunch of people are on the ballot. They're just siphoning off numbers. It's quite a predicament. Whoever would have thought?
Absolutely. I agree.
It's really good to talk to you, Doug. I appreciate it.
Shep, thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
I love
Appreciate
Shep.
it, Doug. Well, Shep's a realist. Shep is a realist. There's no question about that. And I'm surprised he's still on Fox News, but that's okay. That was really an eye-opener, wasn't it? That interview really was an eye-opener. Shep really just put it out there. You put something out there that you knew you couldn't change. You knew you couldn't pass. And, they're going to do that. Well, we made 20 changes to Obamacare. Well, you did that with Democrats. You didn't do that with Republicans. You did it with Democratic support. So let's call it what it is, Z.
Well, he's pointing out something extremely valid, is that they've continued to do this and break promises, and all you've got is Doug Hay, completely unable to explain anything. This is a Republican strategist who's basically saying, "Oh yeah, well anyone but Donald Trump." It's like, and Smith says, well, yeah, but anyone's not on the ballot,
Right. So then he keeps asking who, and doesn't get an answer, does he?
Right. And basically you guys are screwed. You've screwed.
Yeah.
And you did this to yourselves. You've done this to yourselves. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, Harry Reid was on the floor of the Senate the other day with a large headline from the Washington Post printed out on a placard saying Trump is the GOP's Frankenstein monster, and Reid blasted Republicans for creating this. And they did, and even Republican pundits are saying, yeah, we did this, Now, you can go around blaming the media all you want, and I do give certain blame to MSNBC. Joe Scarborough had Trump on any time he felt like calling in. And so, they've given him a tremendous amount of free airtime. He hasn't had to pay for a single thing. And really, we've talked about this too, is both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump have kind of laid waste to Citizens United, because neither of them have taken money from large corporations and lobbyists. So, for Republican pundits and Republican strategists to get on and say, yeah, this is unfair because he hasn't had to spend any money, is a little bit ridiculous just in that fact alone. So, and that's what people like about Trump, is that he hasn't taken money from and then you've got the pundits saying this is unfair because he hasn't had to spend any money, and they're blaming the media. So how does that work exactly?
Yeah, I have a little breaking news, by the way, and this is something that will be of interest to you because you've brought it up a handful of times in the last couple of weeks. Coming out of the Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts rejected a plea today to block a contentious air pollution rule for power plants in a big victory for the Obama administration. Roberts' order came despite his court's 5-4 decision last year ruling that the Environmental Protection Agency regulation known as mercury and air toxin standards is illegal. What does that tell you?
That tells us that we're going to be a lot better off without Scalia, right?
Yeah, it really does.
So what exactly did they do? Because I think what you and I talked about was when this came down as a 5-4 decision, it pretty much allowed large corporations to continue to pollute. And what I was speculating was that all they really had to do was change the wording a little bit from the EPA and put it back to the lower courts and then get it bumped up to the Supreme Court again, essentially allowing it to be a 4-4 vote and then going back down to the original ruling of the lower courts. So how exactly did this all come about? I mean, you've got the article and you said it's breaking news, but
let me share with you what the article says. Roberts' order came, as I said, despite the court's 5-4 decision last year ruling that the EPA regulation known as mercury and air toxic standards is illegal. Michigan led a group of 20 states last month, empowered by the Supreme Court's recent unprecedented decision to halt the EPA's climate change rule for power plants and asking the court to live up to its ruling last year and block the regulation's enforcement. Unless this court stays or enjoins further operation of the mercury and air toxins rule, this court's recent decision in Michigan versus EPA will be thwarted, the states wrote in a February 23 filing of the court. A stay or injunction is appropriate because the court has already held that the finding on which the rule rests is unlawful and beyond EPA's statutory authority. The requested stay would harm the public interest. Roberts acted swiftly, waiting less than a day after the EPA's response brief to side with the Obama administration. He acted unilaterally, electing to reject the request himself rather than take it to the full court, which may have led to a 4-4 split following Scalia's death. The court ruled last June, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. It's time to end this damaging litigation and protect our children from the poisons in our air and water, said Vicki Patton, general counsel for the Environmental Defense Fund, which participated in the case to help the EPA along with other green and health groups in some states. The mercury and air toxins standards are safeguarding millions of American children from poisons such as mercury, arsenic, and acid gases. Michigan and its allies opposing the rule could still try to seek a full court review of Roberts' decision.
Wow.
Yeah, that's big.
Well, yeah, and it's a little. I find it a little disconcerting that clean air is big news, right? I mean that should kind of be a given, you know, that we're not polluting the air that people breathe. I mean, the whole idea that we're having discussions that things like breathable air and drinkable water are up for debate is something I can't even explain to you, Tony, how much having to think that way infuriates me.
One of the speculations about this evening, Z, is whether or not the Republicans will mention what's happened in Flint, because my governor is a Republican. And by the way, there isn't a single presidential candidate that has asked for his endorsement. I want to make that clear up front. Will they mention Flint? That's the question that has been asked in the local media all morning long.
Do we want to take bets on that? Because I'm going with no.
I would go with no as well.
Yeah.
Now, when the Democrats are in Flint on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day they're going to be here, which I will be at, they will certainly be bringing up the water situation. There's no question about that. But yeah, I would go with you that no, they're not going to mention what happened in Flint. And by the way, you're going to find this absolutely disgusting. But the governor was actually bragging that the Flint water crisis created 81 new jobs.
Well, I guess there's a silver lining, isn't there?
Yeah, right. Created 81 new jobs. By the way, the Michigan Democratic Party, and your and my friend Tim Greimel, the Democratic House leader, yesterday called for the resignation of Governor Rick Snyder of Michigan.
Yeah, well, how could you not? I mean, and why did it take so long? I mean,
well, listen, I talked to Tim Greimel last night. We had a nice talk, and he said, Tony, you got to understand the politics of what we're doing. We now have enough evidence to bury the guy. I've got to be careful how much I say because some of that is a protected conversation, as I'm sure you can appreciate, Z. But there's a reason why they waited so long, and I bought the reason. I did. I bought the reason.
Well, then I will defer to your better judgment, and I will buy the reason as well.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Hey, would you mind if we talked a little bit about the Judiciary Committee in the Senate and Senator Grassley?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't we play that audio first from WHO Radio, and then it'll make more sense to the audience once we do that.
Okay.
You quote Joe Biden in 1992, but let me quote another smart person. We ought to concentrate entirely upon the nominees' integrity, their qualifications, and background. That was you in 1992.
Sure. Was it in regard to...
We're talking about the Thomas hearings.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're bringing up about an individual. We don't know who that's Joe Blow or Mary Smith. And you're missing the whole point if you're talking about an individual. This has nothing to do about a person. This is having everything to do about having people have a voice.
Well, the people had a voice in the last presidential election, and they chose to re-elect Barack Obama, and that term hasn't expired yet.
Then what you want to remember is the people spoke in 2014 that they didn't like things Biden was doing and threw out 9 or 10 incumbent Democrat senators.
Or maybe they didn't like what those Democrat senators were doing.
So you have. So here's what it boils down to: you have the president under the Constitution with his power to appoint, and then you have the Senate with their power, independent of the president's, to do. I'll say. It's advise and consent, but consent means to consent or not to consent, or in this particular case, even to withhold consent.
I don't understand if the president stops being the president if people change the party representation of Congress. I don't understand if the president stops being the president then.
Well, don't you think that that's an expression of disagreeing with the president that says I have a pen and a phone, and if the Congress won't, I will, trying to do everything he can, and then packing the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals with 3 people that aren't needed on the court because it's the least overworked court of anyone with about 250 cases per judge, where most of the other circuits have about 700 cases per judge, and put 3 more people on there because you want you aren't satisfied with 4 liberals and 4 conservatives. You want to put on 3 more people to protect the president when EPA makes regulations or Labor Department makes regulations or he has executive orders, and then you don't think there's a revulsion against that by the American people, and it's reflected in a whole turnover in the United States Senate that's the biggest turnover in the United States Senate since 1980.
There it is, Tony.
Yep, there it is. Well, listen, did you notice the last, 45, 50 seconds how freaked out he got?
Oh, he's about to have an aneurysm?
Yeah.
Their ability to completely distort the truth and how things actually work is really only outdone by voters' ignorance to the process in this country. I mean, they're constantly saying that he's doing things, and here's the thing: he's doing things to benefit him and his party. Well, no, duh. I mean, of course he is. You know, like this is some kind of new revelation and travesty that the president would try to push his party's agenda. That this comes as a revelation to them. How? I mean, this has been going on since the beginning of time in this country, and since we first had a president, that the president is pushing his party's agenda.
My favorite line in that interview was, "If the Congress won't act, then I'll use my pen." Well, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that
what
is
do they
exactly
expect him to do? Nothing like they do? I'm seriously, Z. What do they expect this man to do?
That's exactly the reason for there being executive action. That is what is allowed him by the Constitution. And the fact that they can actually argue that the American people, this is what I like. The American people have spoken, and they do not want President Obama to appoint the next nominee of the Supreme Court. Really? So
they want Donald Trump to do that, right?
Well, and it's such an easy argument to counteract, because you go, well, yeah, the people spoke. They reelected him, and he has 4 years, and there's nothing in the Constitution or anywhere that says in the last term of the president, particularly his last year, he cannot nominate. The Constitution doesn't apply to him. I mean, these are people that are constitutionalists that hold the Constitution up and wave it in our face every single time there is something happening. Every single time, the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. And now they're saying, the hell with the Constitution. We're not going to let them appoint. I mean, it's not even, we're not going to vote, or we're going to vote against any nominee. We're not even going to allow him to present a nominee. We're just going to ignore anything he sends our way and not even put it up for debate, because really he's not the president anymore, and the American people, supposedly the American people, are going to decide. I mean, who? I mean, this is what I really don't understand, is that they are a minority in this country, and they pretend to speak for the American people, and the American people did speak. I'm sorry, by 5 million in the last election, that this is who they want and this is who they trust to do the job according to the sacred Constitution. And now they're saying, hey, listen, he can send us anyone he wants. We're not even going to bring it up. We're going to wait another 320 days and allow the Supreme Court to go without a full 9 people on the bench. And the hell with the Constitution, the hell with Obama. This is more down the lines of, he was never the president to begin with. We're denying him the presidency even though he was elected. This is, and then they wonder why they're fractured.
Let me just give you a scenario. Not Barack Obama, but Barry Obama goes to the residence at night and sits down with Michelle and says, what we could have done. I just wanted to do the best for this country. I had some great ideas, and this Congress has thwarted my creativity. They've thwarted what I believe in. They've thwarted my soul. Oh, Michelle, I just wonder what we could have done had, we just had a little cooperation. Do you think Barry Obama ever has that conversation with Michelle?
Oh, I'm sure he does. But here's the thing, and I'm gonna think out loud for a minute. So
sure,
it's fine it's fine that they oppose him. It's fine that they disagree with him. But to completely refuse to put it up for a vote because there's a chance that he might get his way is completely contrary to democracy, to the Constitution, and to what Congress, the Senate, the House should be about, right? Is that there's one guy up there, now Paul Ryan, who decides what bills go to the floor. And, Boehner was in a worse position because he was such a wimp and listening to the Tea Party, that they're completely refusing in this instance and in many instances, not only they won't even put it up for a vote. They won't even allow the opposing party to voice. They won't. Well, here's the bottom line. They won't even allow democracy to happen.
You're right. They will not. Listen, we don't have a lot of time left, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Melissa Harris Perry, who I absolutely adore, leaving MSNBC in what she's calling a racially motivated move. They wanted her to sign an agreement that said that she wouldn't say anything but positive things about MSNBC. And in fact, when she was interviewed on the phone the other day, she said, "We deserved a proper burial. We didn't deserve to be disappeared. It was evil and it was cruel and it has racial implications." Yesterday, Illinois Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez ripped MSNBC apart for being pro-white. Wow, this is getting out of control.
Yeah, I've got to admit I haven't been paying that much attention. I got some rumblings of what was going on. There's also a lot of evidence to the contrary that it's racially motivated. I don't really want to. Do you want me to play the clip? Because I don't.
Yeah,
really
why don't we do
speculate.
that? Yeah, it was on. This is from CNN Money.
Okay, let me play the clip.
Sure.
Cable news shows come and cable news shows go. That's the reality of the TV business. But something strange is happening over at MSNBC, revealing a lot about how MSNBC's liberal identity is fading away. It involves Melissa Harris Perry and her weekend morning show. Her one of a kind and at times controversial talk show has been in TV purgatory, replaced by generic campaign coverage for the past 3 weeks. And as of this morning, it's officially canceled. Now, listen, I'm a direct time slot competitor of hers, so I have an interest in this, and I know Harris Perry is a polarizing figure. Some people are very happy she's been sidelined, but I think she deserved better than this. Harris Perry's talk show was unique. Love it or hate it, she booked people who otherwise weren't seen or heard on TV. In some ways, she symbolized the Obama era of MSNBC. But that era is ending. For months now, she has felt like her show was being squeezed and slowly canceled, even before it was preempted once and then twice this month. So as more and more people started noticing that she disappeared, MSNBC put her back on the schedule for this weekend, but she said no. She would not come to work. She wrote in a letter to staff that the purpose of this decision seems to be to provide cover for MSNBC, not to provide voice for my show. I will not be used as a tool for their purposes. I am not a token, mammy, or little brown bobblehead. I am not owned by MSNBC. Now that is a scorching statement. I've never seen anything like it in cable news, and it has led to her exit. She's confirmed to me in a text message this morning that severance talks are now underway. The reality is that MSNBC is making changes all across its schedule, trying to score ratings victories against CNN and Fox. But by marginalizing her, the channel is taking a risk. Look at this. The outpouring of support for her online. The hashtag MSNBCSoWhite has popped up, with some people complaining that black and Hispanic hosts have been disproportionately affected by all these changes. Quoting Paul Farhi in the Washington Post here, all the changes carry a potential perception risk that MSNBC is diminishing the contributions of its minority personalities.
Well, and there's some truth to that.
Yeah, I mean they did something similar with Joy Reid, who is
Alex Wagner, Jose Bilares, L. Sharpton. It is getting very white.
Well, listen, Al Sharpton, I can kind of understand.
Well, now, come on. We're not talking about personalities here. We're talking about the changes that they've made, with the exception of Ed Schultz, who they disagreed with because he was so pro-labor. That's why they got rid of him. All of the people they've gotten rid of are people of color.
Who is now working for a Russian-owned radio station, by the way.
Which is Ed Schultz?
Ed Schultz, yeah, which is kind of weird. There was an interview with him the other day where he went off, and I want to try to find it. And there was a Republican strategist who basically said, "Well, yeah, but you're working for a Russian network now." And he goes, "Yeah, it's owned by the Russians, but they haven't tied my hands on anything, and I haven't been." So I want to try to find that clip. Maybe we'll play it tomorrow.
I used to be his permanent guest host.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was his permanent guest host for 3 or 4 years.
I like Ed Schultz.
Before Mike Papantonio started doing it, I was his guest host for 3 or 4 years. I only stopped because I ran for Congress.
I liked his show on MSNBC. I liked Melissa Harris Perry's show on MSNBC. I think she brought a conversation out
that no one else brought to the air.
Yeah, and that needed to be talked about.
You're right. You're 100% right.
So I did used to watch her. Well, she was on Sundays or Saturdays. I can't remember.
Saturdays. But she was on Saturdays.
I used to watch her in the afternoon, and it's going to be interesting to see.
She was on in the morning.
Yeah, it's good. I'm sorry. I did watch her though.
I'm glad you love that. I'm glad you like that show so much, Z.
Well, I don't pay attention to time. I mean, I liked her show, and I think they did replay it in the afternoon, by the way. So, go.
Okay. Listen, I just had to do that.
So shove it.
Thank you. We can't repeat the conversation we have before we get on the air.
Exactly. I think more is going to come out with this, and I'm always a little hesitant to scream racial injustice, but the evidence, with Sharpton coming off, with Joy Reid show coming off, particularly Melissa Harris Perry and Joy Reid, because both of them were excellent commentators.
I felt the same way about Alex Wagner.
Yeah, I did too. Extremely knowledgeable, and very, very, very good reporters, and their opinions really made a big difference on that channel. And I didn't really find them to be particularly liberal. So we're getting close to the end.
No, they were honest.
Here. We're getting close to the end here.
Before we do that, I want people to go to the TNZ Talk Facebook page today and look at the cartoon from the Washington Post that I posted in regard to Rubio's comments about little hands. Great cartoon. So just go check it out. Go ahead, Z. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I had one clip to play, and it was a toss-up between the Beatles, Marilyn Monroe, or Jimi Hendrix. And I think I'm going to go with Jimi Hendrix, and we'll end the show with that, because Tony, it's your birthday today, and before we hear that, because I love Jimi Hendrix, before we hear that, I want to remind people to go to tnztalk.com. You'll find our Facebook, Twitter, everywhere that you can follow us, ways that you can support us, and of course our archives. So Tony Tripiano, this one's for you.